Përshëndetje, në minutazhin në vijim do të flasim për dashurinë për Shqipërinë apo për qytete të ndryshme të vendit tonë, nga të gjithë ata njerëz të cilët kanë emigruar nga Shqipëria, por edhe nga ata të cilët me rrënjë shqiptare kanë lindur apo janë rritur në shtete të ndryshme të botës, por që ende dhe në ditët e sotme, pavarësisht të moshës që kanë, duan të kontribuojnë për vendin e tyre sadopak. Këtë herë do të flasim për qytetin e Korçës, për një fondacion i quajtur Korçarët, Ndihmojmë, Korçarët. Do të kemi një lidhje të drejtë për drejtë Skype zonjën Yvonne Naum. Miss Yvonne, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ania. Thank you.
You are the initiator of the foundation Korçarët, Ndihmojmë, Korçarët. When and why did you focus on this initiative?
I think, and first of all, let me say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about our wonderful community foundation, Korçarët, Ndihmojmë, Korçaret. This thought, I think, first the germination first happened in 2019 when I visited Korçë for the first time. I had not, anyway, so that was really when it began in my head. So when I visited Korçë, I went actually in the middle of May in 2019, and that was when the time of year when my parents got married. They married on May 19th in 1929, and I went there, and I actually felt very depressed because Korçë looked to me neglected. It was not the beautiful Korçë that my mother in particular had really spoken about and cried about. You know, I grew up in the 1930s and 1940s. I was born in 1933. And Korçë, the world was going through terrible things in the 30s. And my mother and my father lost contact with their families. And so there was a lot of crying. And I remember that really affected me, that my parents felt, I felt their anguish. And so when I went there in 2019, I just felt the depression. And after I came home, soon after, my youngest son, John, died. And I began to think about, well, what will I do? I know I'm going to have some estate after I die. I will have money. And I want to be able to maybe give some of this money to help Korçë and the Korçarët. So that was when I began to think about it. And actually in 3 years ago now, or 2 years ago, something like that, 2 or 3 years ago, I found Global Albanians Foundation on their website online. I was doing some other research and I found them and I read about Global Albanian Foundation and it just came together and I thought, you know, this is how I can give my money to help Korçarët. So that's really when it started. And here we are now, or maybe almost 2 years ago that we first started talking about this. And I am just so grateful. We have this wonderful team on the ground with Nardi Oli and Ardit Konomi. And I just trust and I love these people. And I think we are going to do some worthwhile, maybe even wonderful things to help Korçarët.
What do you intend to achieve through this foundation?
Right now, we're thinking the biggest need is to help the elderly. And as in this country, you know, I am 91. You don't know, I am 91 and I do live alone. And the only reason I can live alone is because I have the help of neighbors and friends. And I have the financial means actually too. So in Korçë, there are also many elderly like me, but they really don't have the means necessarily. But the elderly, we do need help everywhere in the world. And that is a need that is not going to diminish. That's in fact a need that's going to increase. There are more and more elderly that are going to be needing help. So that's our initial focus. Actually, last year we did give some money to help various children programs. So there's the possibility also to help young people and to help the environment. I would really love if some of our money could go to beautifying Korçë the way it used to be.
You have the title of a PhD, but how difficult has it been for a girl or moreover a foreigner to climb the career ladder in the USA?
You know, and the biggest difficulty for me was that I grew up in an Albanian immigrant family here in New York City. And, you know, then maybe even now, the only goal for girls was to grow up, be a good daughter, and become a good wife. And that was what I was raised with. So that was my biggest impediment, I think. I'm very intelligent. And so I've learned early on how I figure things out. If I see a problem, I work at it until I figure it out. And getting the PhD actually was kind of an accident because I went to a special high school for intelligent girls in New York City. And then I went to college, and the way I started towards my PhD at Columbia University, which is a wonderful university, it was the time of the Korean War. It was 1953, and Columbia College needed a teaching assistant in botany, and my major in college was botany, and they could not find a young man to take that position. So they contacted my school, and one of my professors learned about this, and she sent me to Columbia University. We were all in New York City, and she said, go up and see about this teaching assistantship. And so I went, and I was barely 20 years old, and I was interviewed, and they hired me, Enea. And that was only because there were no men available. And in fact, there were no women in Columbia College at that time. So this was an opportunity. And that really is the story of my life, I think. There have been various opportunities, and I take them. So once I got the teaching assistantship, I stayed at Columbia. I got a master's degree in 1955, and then I back from the National Institutes of Health here in Washington, D.C., and I continued at Columbia for my PhD with fellowships and scholarships, and, you know, that was how I did it.
In addition to your professional career, in your LinkedIn bio you refer to your passion for canton and classical music. Do you believe that this connection was also inherited from Korçë, the city of the serenades?
You know, Enea, I did not know that Korçë is known as the city of serenades, but that is interesting. And when I was growing up, my parents and their friends had many friends from Korçë and neighboring towns, and they would get together in our apartment in New York and have the big dinner, fill the apartment, maybe 20, 30 people. Not a big apartment, but they would fill it. And they would eat and drink raki that they made. And then they would sing, and it was absolutely beautiful. And the thing I remember is that my mother's voice, her singing voice, was very clear and very strong. And I think I inherited my mother's voice.
Let's return to the foundation again, and as you know, Korçë is one of the cities that has built philanthropic activity in Albania, creating an excellent tradition. Do you believe that this tradition can be resurrected as strong as before?
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen, Enea. What do we know? We really don't know, but I am hoping that what we are doing is really a spark, and that we can ignite enthusiasm for just benefiting Korçë and Korçarët.
Do you have any message to all the Korçarët who live not only in Albania to be part of this great philanthropic mission?
I think there is love in our hearts for our families. You know, there are things that I was angry with my parents about. And in a way, my doing this is me forgiving my parents even for everything I was angry at them about. So it's a forgiveness, it's a loving, and it's a knowing. This is a way, well, I didn't start it this way, but I am realizing that, in fact, there will be good memories of me. So we can do it for ourselves, and we can do it for the love of these wonderful people who've actually suffered a great deal growing up here in the US and in New York and in Shoreline, Washington. I have been, I have a wonderful life. But Korçë and Albania have really had, well, there's just, you know what you've had. And so you have all suffered a great deal. And I am hoping that we are sharing our love can just strengthen all of us for a much happier future.
Miss Yvonne, thank you for your time.
Faleminderit shumë.